Hello, people of YouTube land, and those that are part of the Cringe Crew Gaming Community Discord, and those that follow Ted and I on Twitch. I am Traductus, aka the douchebag with the Pit Vipers.
And I'm Ted.
And this is the Cringe Crew Gaming Jade's Pod Review Podcast. And I know what people are asking, and that is, why on earth are we subjecting ourselves to Casino Royale 1967? One,
you're right.
We are completionists, and two, every James Bond podcast gets to this movie, and I want to specify this once and for all: we're reviewing it once and never again. When a new James Bond movie comes out, and we decide to, maybe rewatch them all, we're not rewatching this one. This is going straight down to the bottom where it fucking belongs. Do not, and I repeat, do not ask us to watch this movie again unless you are paying off both of our student debts.
And then some. I need damages.
But anyway, yes, Casino Royale 1967, a spy parody film distributed by Columbia Pictures and directed by John Huston, Ken Hughes, Robert Parrish, Joe McGrath, Val Guest, and produced by Charles K. Feldman, who we'll talk about later, and Jerry Bressler.
Before you get too far, Stallman, you hit there at like an but you made it one word, and I just need someone to drop in the comment sections whether it should have been counted or not. I'm moving on.
All right. The movie had a budget of $12 million and had a box office return of $41.7 million because people are fucking idiots.
True.
Spoiler alert. This movie didn't do as well as You Only Live Twice, which is what this movie was essentially competing with. And on top of that, the legendary movie critic Roger Ebert said this: "This is probably the most self-indulgent film ever made." So, more or less, this did not get good reviews even back then. So this isn't so much that it's outdated, it just was never funny. That being said, how this movie ended up coming to be, Ian Fleming wrote Casino Royale. That was the first James Bond novel. It was a, pretty much a successful novel, and then a year later, CBS goes to Ian Fleming and goes, "Hey, would you mind giving us, the rights to shoot a TV, adaptation for our series Climax?" And he said, "Yeah." And then he ended up getting, I think, $1,000 back then, and it's more than that in today's money for that. And then afterwards, he ended up selling the film rights to the novel to a producer by the name of Gregory Radoff for $6,000, which is now $60,693 as of 2021. So who knows, what adjustment it is in 2022. After that, Gregory Radoff passed away, and Charles K. Feldman, who is a producer, and a legendary producer at that, which ends up me being really pissed off at this, all right? Because this isn't some dude that, didn't know what the hell he was doing, and then we had the clusterfuck. This guy knew what the hell he was doing. Let me show you some of the filmography stuff that he was known for, alright? Orson Welles' Macbeth, A Streetcar Named Desire, 7-Year Itch, and What's New Pussycat. All basically well-received films. Oh, and The Glass Menagerie. especially Streetcar Named Desire. This guy knows how to produce movies.
I was gonna say, like, I think you stacked your order there wrong, Stallman, because there were 3 of those that were very, very, very good films, and 2 that I didn't recognize. Had you stacked it in order of least important to most important, you'd have added some shock value.
Right.
Production scuffed.
I was going by year. With Casino Royale being the last film that he produced, shocker. Probably didn't help that he actually had a heart attack on set, and then passed away sometime later after this film was... Actually, a year later after this film was released.
Probably not. Probably doesn't help.
Yeah. Christ, I'm trying to get the... There's my cursor. It's hard to see these goddamn pit vipers. Hold on, let me take them off and put my actual glasses on. But anyway, so Charles K. Feldman gets the rights. And was actually thinking about making a movie version of Casino Royale, and this was before the Connery films were made. He saw that they were trying to have Cary Grant from North by Northwest as James Bond, but they turned him down. So therefore, he was actually going to make like a Casino Royale with since they said no to Cary Grant. He goes, well, I can accumulate more funds with me being a more seasoned producer. I could probably get Cary Grant. Well, he didn't get everything all together in time, and then he saw Dr. No, and then he's just like, okay, I don't think I can really manage to, compete with that. Some time later, Albert Broccoli and Harry Saltzman of Eon Films actually went up to Charles K. Feldman and asked him, it's like, hey, we would like to do Casino Royale. Would you want to co-produce it with us? And Charles K. Feldman said yes, but asked for like $1 million. And that was a no-go. And so they made Thunderball instead, able to broker a deal with Kevin McClory, which is hilarious if you've watched every previous episode with Kevin McClory kind of being a dick with the rights. But
True.
But that just kind of shows you how much of a cock fucking Charles K. Feldman must have been. Not
to spoil this too far, but the other interesting part is that seeing this and then deciding to offer Feldman a job is fucking insanity, man.
Yeah, this isn't really subject of his, production quality, because, like, A Streetcar Named Desire, Glass Menagerie, like, Macbeth, like, there's a lot of, good shit out there, and then there's this.
Yeah, I mean, not to shit on his entire works, but, like, this one being the reference that you want to, like, hey, make a James Bond movie. This was so fucking bad.
And mind you, we're going to get to how it ends up becoming the way that it is. He goes, okay, I'll make my own James Bond film. And I actually tried poaching Connery, and it was actually during while Thunderball was being made, like a little bit shortly before, and Connery asked for $1 million.
That sounds like Connery's specific level of dickhead.
Because Connery's like, if I'm being Bond, I want my money. And more power to Sean Connery. That went. With that being said, that was a no-go, and they were actually planning on having it be like a serious film since Feldman couldn't get Connery, couldn't really think that he could compete. He decided to make it a parody, and they went through like 800 like different. Well, I'm exaggerating. It's probably like more like 5 different like script rewrites. The script wasn't even finished while they were making it. One of the scripts was actually written by Billy Wilder, who is known for writing screenplays in Ace in the Hole, 7 Year Itch, and Some Like It Hot. So apparently that didn't work out, and they had to rewrite that as well. Although I do believe he's the one that came up with the idea of multiple people having the name of James Bond. There's one real James Bond. It's just to confuse like the evil organization SMERSH.
But it just
which
confuses
is
you watching when nobody's fucking familiar at all.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So they ended up acquiring that. They ended up getting like an ensemble cast. And also an ensemble directors thing, although the only person I really recognize is John Huston, who directed James Bond's the scenes at James Bond's house and the scenes at the Scottish castle, which is extremely offensive to Scottish people, I think, but if you ever watch the movie and have that morbid curiosity, I recommend not, because I'm pretty sure they show this movie.
Ah, fuck. Alright, so this time it was me that was scuffed, and dumb shit happened. And so we'll pick up where Stallman left off.
Alright, yeah, director John Huston, known for directing The Maltese Falcon, which is considered one of the greatest films ever made, Asphalt Jungle, which is a movie that's been remade time after time after time and started the whole genre of teacher goes to bad area school and then changes the school around genre of films. So also we have Red Badge of Courage, The African Queen, Moby Dick, The Misfits being Marilyn Monroe's last film. He's also was an actor in the 1974 film Chinatown. So obviously someone that knows what he's doing with movies. Unfortunately, he is one out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 directors in this damn movie. And essentially they were given a task of like, film what you want, have fun with it.
And
that's all.
Was bad.
Yeah.
The end product, to do whatever, it sucked.
And to add stuff to injury, and by the way, there isn't really going to be like a likes and dislikes. There's very little likes on this. This is just...
Yeah, we're just going to funnel out opinions because they're all bad.
So we have a cast here, and you know what? On paper, this cast wouldn't be quite terrible. I mean, John Huston is M, even though he's only there for like a scene, because he ends up dying, and David Niven, who plays the actual James Bond, is put in there. And David Niven, known for playing suave, witty characters throughout like the 50s and 60s, but most people would probably know him as Sir Charles, also known as, spoiler alert, if you haven't watched the 60s Pink Panther films, he is the Phantom, the famous jewel thief. He's also plays Phineas Fogg in the movie Around the World in 80 Days. And also was one of Ian Fleming's choices for James Bond. And it's cool that, you know, hey, you get someone that the author kind of thought would be a good James Bond. However, this is like, David Niven is past boomer, and he's in a parody and doesn't necessarily get to be James Bond. You don't really see like the suave charm that you see him in other films. This one, he's just kind of like awkward in there.
Fair.
We have Peter Sellers as Evelyn Tremble, who does the Baccarat stuff. And we'll get to Peter Sellers when we get to Orson Welles, and we get to another person that, you know what, fuck it, we'll just go through all three with this. But first, I'll say this. Vesper Lynd's in this, played by Ursula Andress. If you remember in the Dr. No episode, Ursula Andress plays Honey Rider, and she's dubbed in that film. She's not dubbed in this. She actually gets to use her voice, so that's about like one positive in this movie. But now we get to the nitty gritty on kind of one of the reasons why this movie ends up being the clusterfuck that it is. We have Peter Sellers as Evan Tremble, also James Bond, in code. Orson Welles as Lashif, and fucking Woody Allen as Jimmy Bond, and spoiler alert, the villain of this, Dr. Noah, which we find at the very end. All three were big pain in the fucking asses during shooting.
Gasp.
Peter Sellers, who's noted to being a comedic genius, but also noted for being one of the most hardest actors to really deal with on set. I will say this, he worked well with Kubrick, because he plays the President, also Colonel Mandrake, and Dr. Strangelove himself in Dr. Strangelove. Most people know him as Inspector Clouseau in the original Pink Panther series. If you're fairly new, that's Steve Martin's character in the remake. Orson Welles, people know him from War of the Worlds. He is basically the bassist for Brain and Pinky and the Brain. Like, the Brain's literally an Orson Welles impression, and is also, noted for being the director of Citizen Kane, which is considered one of the greatest movies ever made. Both Orson Welles and Peter Sellers apparently didn't like each other and had to film their scenes separately, and Peter Sellers also didn't show up to a bunch of things. On top of that, with Orson Welles being there, Peter Sellers thought, well, I could actually, play like James Bond, and it's kind of stupid that this is a parody. So he tries playing everything straight and tries to one-up acting Orson Welles and even Woody Allen. Even though there isn't really any scenes between Sellers and Woody Allen, it's just Woody Allen's there. He just figured I'd try to outdo that. And Peter Sellers ends up getting fired in the middle of production because of him being a prick and getting into a fight with one of the people on set. Not one of the actors, just some random, studio person. Orson Welles took this opportunity to basically show off his magic tricks with film. So he required that he would be sitting down during his scenes, and he would do his magic trick stuff. And on top of that, he also, and you can tell in the film, is visibly intoxicated or hungover after drinking a shit ton of champagne on set. As a matter of fact, he would have huge freaking parties on set and then stagger his way into filming his scenes. So we have a drunk Orson Welles who wants to do magic, and a very, very broomstick up his ass Peter Sellers trying to actually make this into a serious film despite it being a comedy, at odds at each other. And on top of that, we have Woody Allen, who I will say I'm not a big fan of. There's only one movie that I think Woody Allen is actually remotely good in, and that's Annie Hall. I think he's great in Annie Hall. Everything else he's just tolerable in, and everything else in the movie is good.
And it sours the fact that anything he's ever done has been ruined by the fact that he is who he is, and he's a terrible fucking human. So, it sours everything.
I agree. I totally agree. And he doesn't really add anything to this, and he was such a prima donna that he was just I write my own lines, and they let him write his own lines. And so you have all these egos not being kept in check. You have multiple directors, and it just multiple scripts. There is very little plot in this.
There was a plot?
Yeah. There's
what?
It's just shit happens.
Yeah, I not to jump us too far into quote unquote likes and dislikes, but I mean that was a big thing, is that you're
likes, it ends.
Yeah, that's it. So to move us into dislikes,
and there's a couple funny jokes.
I chuckled twice. We watched this movie for 2 fucking hours. I chuckled twice. My whole thing is that, like, watching this movie felt pointless, right?
Yeah.
They made, you can make a spoof movie that is worthwhile as a movie, right?
Austin Powers. Austin freaking Powers.
Spaceballs, right? Like you can make spoof movies that are genuinely funny.
Scary movie.
You can make shitty spoof movies that have funnier moments than this, where you don't care about how bad the movie is. Meet the Spartans is one of the worst fucking cinematic fucking diarrhea piles I've ever goddamn seen, but it makes you fucking laugh, right? Like but like this was just, it was awful. And the whole time I'm trying to give myself the benefit of the doubt of, like, no, this was funny for 1967 because their standard for comedy was lower. And then you remember the comedy they threw into other Bond movies of the similar time, and you're just like, no, this just fucking sucks.
Sucked. Yeah.
They didn't put effort into writing. They didn't put effort into casting. Or, well, okay.
They put effort into casting. They didn't put any effort into controlling their cast.
And they didn't put foresight into who they were casting to compete with each other. Okay. The idea is that, like, they decided we needed a Bond movie, Casino Royale, let's do it. And then that was the extent of their thought process. It was offensive. It was bland. It was boring. It was goddamn stupid. And I'll give them a little credit in that I was trying to see that they were just trying to make a mockery of everything that Bond was, right? So there, okay. While we're on the topic of what's his name, Woody Allen, we're going to talk about the fact that they made a huge fetishization out of everything to do with fucking people who are underage.
I will state this, and this is no excuse whatsoever, but I guess their thought process is that over in the UK the age of consent's 16, but it's still like
even if that's the case, they made a point of making it weird when she's like, I'm 16, 17. I don't remember her fucking age from watching the movie because I needed a week to sanitize.
I think she said she was 17, and then the youngest person in the house was 16.
Doesn't fucking matter, bro. Like,
I will give props. At least they made Bond just like feel as awkward as us.
They still made it weird by highlighting the fact that, like, hey, she's only 17. Whether that's the age of consent, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, I don't care either.
Again, Woody Allen foreshadowing hyper plot line. Anyway,
don't.
The whole thing was like, hey, we've had 20-something movies of Bond now, like, fucking everything with a pulse and very little restraint. And this one's like, hey, girl comes on to him and he's very terrified of women. Please don't touch me. I'm scared of you. And then she's 17 and they're like, hey, they still made even that anti-trope weird. They sucked at animations and effects, and they didn't add a plot. And oh man. So spoiler, we watched this a week ago. It took a week of being sanitized from watching this movie before I was able to talk about it again. I had to ask him what one of my fucking notes meant. That note was, I literally wrote the words, the aspirin. I wrote it in all caps. I added a question mark. I put 2 underlines underneath it because it very clearly made me upset. And then I had to sanitize my brain of it to make sure I didn't fucking remember it, that I had to ask Stallman what it meant. There was a point in time in which they poisoned a character. They gave him...
Woody Allen takes one of his atomic pills that are supposed to kill everybody above 5'11".
Right?
Not 4'11".
They gave him hiccups, and there was a blue animated cloud that looks like a fucking apple emoji over top of his mouth as he hiccuped. I think you could make that point without it. Like, they animated things badly. Nobody gave a single solitary shit about this movie. The most effort they put in was to making it look actually worse than the dog shit pile that was this movie. Like, this This was just so fucking abysmal. They spoofed some weird shit. Like every spoof movie ever spoofs
there's a lot of things that you'll never. There's a lot of things that you would never even get. Like George Raft is in this from Scarface, and he's like flicking a coin. He's only in there for like once. There's like a lot of cameos of like famous people back in the day that have like one scene that's just pointless. And
everything's a fucking throwaway line. The other thing that I was gonna say is that like we're an hour and a half into this movie, and all of a sudden you just see Frankenstein's fucking monster get spooked because there's something with like needles sticking out of its fucking neck walking around the street like this or down the hallway like this, and it just like they spoof everything, and they didn't get any of it fucking right. They managed to fuck up every almost funny joke they had. It almost felt like they were putting in effort to like, hey, how can we waste our money the most? And they did it!
I mean, because like I like the concept of like everybody's like James Bond, including the women. You know, that's actually kind of somewhat funny, but then afterwards it just gets dumb and confusing and pointless because there's like they don't use it and they don't use it at all,
and because that was you don't have to care about any of the characters because this is the biggest pile of fucking dog shit ever. You kind of lose track of who actually is supposed to be James Bond because everybody is, and you didn't give a fuck about the characters, what they looked like, or who they were. Like nothing fucking mattered. Like even in this movie, women telling you, "Hey, I'm James Bond," you're like, "I believe it. I haven't been watching because I am pretending that I haven't actually watched it." This movie was so fucking abysmally goddamn bad. I said weeks ago there was never going to be anything I ever watched worse than Moonraker. We were 8 minutes into this movie before I asked, do we have to watch it or can we just lump this in with the next week's episode so that I can watch both bad things, get them out of the way, do a podcast in 7 fucking minutes and end it?
I'm not... Let's not jump the gun. I'm not sure if the next one's like quote-unquote bad. It's just made for TV in the 1950s. So, probably, it's not going to be like the other James Bond films or anything like that, but like it's like probably not terrible for the time of what it was, what they had to work with.
I give Stallman credit for his explanation of why we didn't lump them both into one dog shit episode of movies we didn't like, but the reasons to watch this movie are because we did. And for exactly no other reason. Even the completionist in me that fucking commits masochism to achievement hunt in fucking video games didn't want to finish longer than 10 minutes of this goddamn movie. This was the worst shit I've ever watched.
I'd rather like platinum or whatever the fuck it is, diamond the frickin' Joker in Call of Duty.
Right. This was the worst fucking shit ever.
Yeah, this is by far the worst big budget movie that I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot of terrible big budget movies. I've seen Geely. Geely's funnier than this.
Do you have anything notable you want to mention on dislikes before we get into the very clear rankings and then we move on with our lives?
For dislikes?
Well, there aren't any likes, so.
The only like that I really have is like Vesper. Ursula Andress gets to use her voice. I think it's pretty cool that David Niven does finally get to play James Bond, but it's only James Bond in name only.
And he doesn't even get to own that because 18 other people in his fucking movie also get to play James Bond.
Orson Welles is a little bit entertaining just to see how drunk he is throughout the entire movie, but like, and then also the villain plot of killing every man in the world over 4'11", so that way the villain is the tallest man on Earth, making him more desirable to women, because that's how that works. But
it's still a shitty trope. It's not worth it.
Yeah, it's stupid enough to laugh at it, but the biggest thing that I hate about this movie, all right?
Is it exists?
Besides that, all right? the entire whole thing of like the trailer, they're really selling like Casino Royale is too big for one James Bond, and they do nothing with that trope with other people being James Bond. Absolutely jack fucking crap. You also have like a cast that could really do something sans Woody Allen. Woody Allen's it's just another Woody Allen performance, just a stereotypical archetype of like a, you know, extremely like anti-Semitic character.
Yep.
There, I said that. I don't care. Fuck Woody Allen. But like Orson Welles could have done a hell of a lot better. You know, Peter Sellers definitely could have done better. David Niven and Peter Sellers have worked together before. And on top of that, you have John Huston. To me, it's like if they would have just had John Huston direct the damn thing and not have like 5 different directors and maybe just like stuck with like Billy Wilder's script and then try to change that a little bit and make it into a comedy, this could have worked. This totally could have worked. And there was just no fucking care. No fucking care at all. And it just became this huge fucking clusterfuck. And I'm surprised that it was only Charles K. Feldman that literally career went to the shitter after this. Like everybody else, like, you know, kind of recovered to an extent. Although Peter Sellers basically just did nothing but Pink Panther movies after this one for the most part of note. Although I think there's one more movie of note that he did. But like, I'm just kind of disgusted that I even like watched this again.
I wish,
and I'm surprised I made it through one sitting. This was the first time I was able to make it through one sitting, and
I really wish we would have skipped it. Like this, I feel like even watching Moonraker and Dr. No provided more value than this did. Like this was a complete and total fucking waste of time.
Yeah. Like the whole reason why I waited until now to watch this is because I did not want Vesper's betrayal wasted on this film, as opposed to Casino Royale 2006. But even then, Ted told me, he goes, I didn't know what the fuck was going on with this movie, that it would have went past
it was so hard to follow, so stupid, and even watching intently, like, it was still, like, I didn't realize anybody betrayed anybody else because it was so fucking poorly written.
And to be honest, if I would have remembered it being this fucking bad, I remember it was bad enough that I couldn't watch it in one sitting, but I didn't remember it being like this only like terrible, but bland and terrible. Like
there was nothing of value here.
This is, you know, there's numerous times where I've joked like with Moonraker, oh, I'm sorry that you guys had to watch this, or with Haley not liking any of the Connery ones, or, you know, liking the films but just hating Sean Connery. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, Haley. This one I'm actually really sad that I have you guys actually watch it.
It almost means something, except that I did watch it. I think feel pretty confident moving into rankings, which will also be pretty short. I think Stallman and I both agree, without having to speak for you, that I
will say this: I have seen worse movies than this, but this is the worst big budget movie that I've ever seen.
Okay, listen, I've watched Velocipaster, and I would put that miles ahead of this. Like it's literally like,
well, yeah, Velocipaster's entertaining.
It's Moonraker, 50 feet of shit, unwatchable movies, 100 more feet of shit, and then there's whatever the fuck we watched last week. This is easily the worst film I have ever laid eyes on. Easily.
Yeah. This is the worst big budget film that I've ever seen, and the trailer's even fucking terrible. Ted didn't watch the trailer. Haley and I did, and Ted would be wanting to kill the Foley artist in that one because the volume was all over the place on that. I will say this: the Foley artist in this, not terrible, but I don't really want to give any more positives to this movie. This is way worse than Moonraker. It is down at the bottom, and I'm pretty sure the 1954 made-for-TV movie is going to be better than this.
I would be hard pressed to find anything worse than this. Genuinely, I encourage someone to send me anything that I could watch that is a worse experience than this. Don't you dare, Stallman. We can move on.
I can.
We're moving on. Unless you got anything else before we wrap up.
No, I don't. Fuck this movie.
Yep, I second that wholeheartedly. As a matter of fact, I'll drink to that too. Anyway,
the Gatorade beer.
Yeah, this shit is like the color of this genuinely is more entertainment value than this dog shit pile of garbage that calls itself a film. Anyway, as always, thanks for checking out this episode. I'm sorry you had to watch this episode where
I also like to say thank God Ian Fleming died before this movie was made.
Man, bless his soul, he didn't have to ever fucking know this existed under his name. As always, thanks for checking out this episode. Sorry you watched it. Even more sorry if you're watching the movies to keep up with us. Please check us out on Twitch. We put out more.
We should be up to Spectre right now because we're 3 ahead.
I think by the time this gets posted, we will have just watched the last one. I think.
That would be No Time to Die. So maybe, either Spectre or No Time to Die.
If there's a movie left, it'll be the last one.
Yeah. Let's see, Casino Royale 54, which would be next week. Skyfall, Spectre, 3.
I was gonna say if there's a movie left to watch, it'll be this upcoming Tuesday. But if my math is right, we have no more movies left to watch in the Discord. You missed your opportunity, and how dare you join for episode number 20, whatever the fuck we're on, 23 technically because of the bonus episode. You could have watched for the past 23 weeks. What the fuck are you doing? Anyway, follow Stallman and I on Twitch. Stallman at Traductus, myself at Ted Green Eagles. Those links will be posted below. Hopefully the next few weeks of this, the last few weeks of this are going to be very entertaining. And as I asked last week,
yes.
Yeah. As I asked last week, if there's any other series or franchises or directors or anything that you guys are interested in watching us doing reviews on in the future, please drop it below in the comments so that we can continue putting this stuff out, because outside of this episode, it's been really fun. So if there's anything else that you guys would enjoy watching us review, please let us know. Otherwise, thanks for checking this one out, and we'll see you next week.
See ya.